Hello, I'm Jerome Jingry, and today I will be doing a presentation so I can make a retake of test number 1 in calculus. To begin, I will be explaining the concepts of inverse functions. Now, to better understand what an inverse function and how you can, in the situations where they arise, if the function is a one-to-one function, then there is only one function, which is defined as g, on the range of f that satisfies the equation, which is basically saying f of g of x equals x on all x on range of f. Now, let f be a one-to-one function. The inverse is f denotated by f to the negative 1 power. And usually to not get it confused with 1 over f, we usually use f of x brackets to the negative 1 power. And this unique function defined on the range of f, this is the equation that satisfies. And the equation is going to be f of f to the negative 1 x is going to look like this. F of the inverse of f of x equals x for all ranges of f. To better explain that, basically we're saying that for if you have like a simple function, like for example, f of x equals 5x plus 3, for every x you sub in, it'll be that f of x equals 5x plus 3 is basically stating y equals 5x plus 3. To solve for the inverse, you would have to do a switch of the x and the y. So it would be x equals 5y plus 3. Then next, you basically solve for the y, and that will give you the inverse. You subtract the 3 from both sides. We're going to do 5y. X minus 3 equals 5y. You divide the 5 from each side, so it's x minus 3 over 5 equals 1. Here's how I do it. F of x equals 5x plus 3, y equals 5x plus 3. Switches the x's for the y. X minus 2 equals 5y. X minus 3 over 5 equal to y. And that will be the inverse. The y will be substituted back in for our f to the negative 1 power. So basically, the inverse of that. Now on the test, the one that I lost the most points on was the f of x equals x squared minus 6x plus 3. And this was on the range from 3 to infinity. Now, the reason that they put that from 3 to infinity is basically to make sure that you understand that that's where the function will exist, so that you won't be able to use any shortcuts to like make the inverse something else, because there's going to be a multiple ways of inverses. Now, you do it the same way, but instead you're completing the square. So you move you move the 3 outside, it's gonna be x squared minus 6x. And to complete the square for x squared minus 6x, it's gonna be x squared minus 6x plus 9. And then you're gonna have that in quotes, you have that in parentheses. You have that in parentheses, and then you're gonna have a 3 on the outside. Now you have to subtract the 9. You have to subtract the 9 from the 3 because you're adding a 3 to the inside to complete the square. Next, you turn it into a binomial, and it's going to be x minus 3 close parentheses squared the whole thing minus 6, because 3 minus 9 is going to be giving you a negative 6, so it's going to be minus 6. Now you can substitute in for the x for the y's and the y's for the x's. So it's going to be x equals parentheses y minus 3 squared minus 6. You move the 6 to the other side by adding 6 to both sides. It's going to be x plus 6 equals the parentheses of y minus 3 squared the whole thing. Now you square root both sides. When you square root a number, it has to be plus or minus the square root. So it's going to be plus or minus the square root of x plus 6, which equals y minus 3. Then it's going to be 3 plus or minus square root of x plus 6 equals y. So because we're looking for all the positive functions, because you see it's from 3 to infinity, it's only going to be 3 plus square root of x plus 6. Because if you subtract it, it's going to turn into negative numbers, and that's not going to deal with that range. Now, for another example, we can have f of x equals x to the 3/5. Now to get that, that's simply y equals x to the 3/5. You switch around the x's for y's, it's going to be x equals y to the 3/5. To make it even on both sides, to cancel out the 3/5, you multiply both sides. You multiply both by an exponent of 5 over 3, because 5 over 3 times 3 over 5 gives you 1. So it's going to cancel out. It's going to be x to the 5/3 equals out to y, which basically means the inverse of f of x equals x to the 5/3. To continue for a different example in which we would have to use a cube, it would have to be f of x equals the close parentheses of 2 minus 3x, all of it cubed, which is going to mean basically y equals the parentheses of 2 minus 3x cubed. Then you switch around the x's for y's, it's going to be x equals the parentheses of 2 minus 3y cubed. You multiply it by 1/3 to cancel out the cube. No, you multiply it by an exponent of 1/3 to each side to cancel out the cube. It's going to be x to the 1/3 equals 2 minus 3y. You basically subtract the 2 from each side. You have to do an opposite of all of the functions basically, because it's a negative 3. You divide by negative 1 on each side. It's going to be negative x to the 1/3 plus 2 equals 3y. You divide by 3, and then you're going to get out to a final answer of negative x to the 1/3 plus 2 divided by 3 will equal to y, which is completing the inverse of that function. Based off of these many examples, you will have a thorough understanding of the inverse of a function. Thank you very much, and this is Jerome Gingrich's presentation of inverses of functions.